call this Friday, August 6th, 2021 Roanoke County School Board work session into order. Madam Clerk, you call the roll, please. Here.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Here.
Yes, ma'am. All right, item 2.01, closed session in accordance with Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A, the Code of Virginia. Mr. Linden, would you mind doing the honors?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Roanoke County School Board convene in closed session for the following: for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members pertaining to actual or probable litigation, and consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. All right, with that being said, we'll move into closed session and we will be out hopefully shortly.
let's give you an update right now from the Roanoke County School Board. The school board is still in closed session right now. We know a lot of folks are watching us live right now. We apologize for the delay. As you can see, the board is still in closed session right now, so stay with us. As soon as the board does come out of closed session, we will continue with the general part of the meeting. So stay with us.
Thanks, everybody. We'll jump right into it. 2.02, certification of closed session. Mr. Linden, do you mind doing the honors again?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Roanoke County School Board come out of closed session for the following: for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members pertaining to actual or probable litigation, and consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia. And I also move to certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the school board.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Weimer,
Yes.
Mr. Linden,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Greenway,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ray,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Moretz.
Yes, ma'am. All right, item 2.03, we did not have any action from closed session, so we will jump right into item 3.01. Dr. Nicely is going to give us an update on COVID-19 and masking.
Right, so if you want Dr. Stegall to go back through some of the current numbers and so forth, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll open up for discussion, but she's prepared to, share some of the updates if that's what the board wants.
Mr. Linda, did you want to?
I don't need any updates
Okay.
on.
Well, are we
numbers.
going back to this vote based off the new numbers, or are you going back to it for the CDC?
No, we didn't know if anyone wanted an update, because we did have some updated numbers that came out the day after our work session. So,
Right.
no,
So I thought-
I think it would be appropriate.
Was it
yeah,
Thursday?
especially if we're looking.
We've gotten weekly numbers, and since.
Yeah,
we
and Nurse
met
Fails here is
earlier,
also to,
Yeah.
It will give us an idea of where we're headed.
I didn't know which way you were going with that.
Your numbers are actually from yesterday, Dr. Stegall?
No, the most current ones are from the end of the week of July, July 28th, I think.
Because they're all, if I'm correct,
It's
they're a week
7
behind.
day.
We had new
Mhm.
numbers that came out on Wednesday, but they're still a week behind, correct?
So we have no way to get current numbers
But the numbers that we're hearing today would be updated from the ones that we heard
from a
Tuesday.
week ago.
Yeah, they're the most
But they're still a
current.
week old.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The ones we heard on Tuesday were probably almost 2 weeks old.
yeah.
Okay. So here's the list of the numbers here. If you notice at the top in the blue, it says July 10th. We were at moderate. We had 45 new cases per 100,000, and we were at 7.3% of positivity rate. July 17th, we were at substantial. We were at 51 cases per 100,000, and that's 7.9 positivity rate. July 27th, we jumped up to high, 80 new cases per 100,000, and we were at 12.4% positivity. And then the most recent is July 31st. We're still at high, 130 new cases per 100,000 and 11.7 positivity rate. So that the July 31st are the most accurate numbers. These numbers run on a 7-day average, so we're always running a week behind. But the July 31st is the most updated set of numbers. And then if you want me to continue, these are just the updated information that we have out there that will guide decisions around schools. Of course, we have the CDC transportation order that applies to all public transportation. And then on July 27th, CDC updated their guidance due to the Delta variant, basically requiring that all teacher, staff, students age 2 and older, and visitors to K-12 schools, regardless of vaccination status, wear masks. So those were the two major changes since the last time we met. We also have been reviewing the Senate Bill 1303, and it's Chapter 456, and you'll see the statements there that are underlined that refer to law that basically states that schools have to provide in-person instruction in a manner that adheres with, to the extent practical mitigation strategies from the CDC to that extent. And so that's when we have started to review the CDC guidance. We've been doing that all along, but new guidance just came out yesterday. So we have updated the changes to that guidance. And then, of course, I will just briefly go over what those changes were that happened yesterday. The priority, of course, is still to get all kids back into classrooms for in-person instruction, promoting vaccinations to help students return to in-person learning, which we have done because we have facilitated multiple vaccination opportunities for our students and our teachers. Due to the impact of Delta variant, there's universal indoor masking recommended for all students 2 and older, all students, staff, and visitors to K-12 schools, regardless of vaccination status. And in addition, CDC recommends maintaining 3 feet of physical distancing in the classrooms and whenever possible. So that's what was a few more things. Continued layer prevention strategies. So they list a lot of these prevention strategies. We already have these in place, and we will continue all of those. They include screening, ventilation, hand washing, staying home when sick, contact tracing, quarantine protocols, and cleaning and disinfecting. We will continue all of those procedures. Students, teachers, and staff should stay home when they have signs of infectious illness. We still are encouraging all staff and parents to screen kids. If they're showing symptoms, they need to contact the school nurse and not come to school. And then localities should monitor community transmission. That's what we do every day. We show, every time we meet, we show the community transmission rates. The vaccination rates, we look at those every time they're published on a weekly basis. So Roanoke County is right at 70% vaccination rate for adults and 45% at our teenagers. So we're at a really good vaccination rate. We also are asked to consider occurrences of outbreaks, which of course we're not in school, so we have not had any of those, and then to consider the layer prevention strategies that we can put in place. There's been one added recommendation from the CDC that fully vaccinated people are encouraged to be tested on day 3 and 5. As long as there's a mask implementation in the schools, the teachers would not have to quarantine while they're waiting to be tested. These are people who are fully vaccinated, so this is what's a little bit different here. Before, we have always said vaccinated people do not have to quarantine and we do not have to test. The new update in the CDC says that they are going to encourage fully vaccinated adults to be tested on day 3 and 5, just so they can make good decisions outside of school. If we're masked, that's going to protect us, but outside of school, that's where the reason this was added. Athletics and extracurriculars, we have looked into those plans to determine how to move forward, and what we have done is listed some extra mitigation strategies to implement in our return to, and these are very similar to the ones that we implemented last year. The first one, of course, mask. If we implement a mask requirement, mask would be required at all times during practice, but can be removed briefly during high-intensity workouts. Students will not be required to wear a face covering during competition, however, must wear them for pregame activities, warm-ups, and during team timeouts, huddles, and meetings. Increase the distancing when possible during practice to 6 feet. And out-of-season sports, we should limit contact during substantial and high community transmission rates that help keep students in school. Since those programs are out of season, it does not take priority. Put teams in pods and small groups to help limit transmission. To increase cleaning and disinfection for high-touch areas. Encourage students to bring individual water bottles. Coaches keep track of their activities for contact tracing. Ensure students do not attend activities when they're symptomatic. Increase the ventilation indoors at practices and contests. And report all health concerns to our school nurses. Some other implementation factors to consider if we were to consider pre-K 12 mask requirement indoors for students, staff, and visitors. We would like to start that on August 12th, first day of school, alone. And we would start that at the same date, first day of school. Mask would not be required for outdoor activities such as recess and physical education classes. And then athletics and extracurricular activities would begin to follow the new athletic plan immediately. That's all I have for my update. Any questions?
Question for Nurse Vale. Obviously, there are a number of mitigation strategies available to us. What would you consider, when you look at the different mitigation strategies, what would you consider the number one mitigation strategy? Or maybe a better question, where would you put masks on the mitigation strategy level?
Given the fact we want to get kids in school, so we're going to have them closer together, the most important thing is masking is the next. And it'll keep more kids in school because of the way the guidance that we have. They allow us, if they're 3 to 6 feet apart, and the positive person and the exposed person are both wearing masks throughout the day, then we wouldn't have two of them. Otherwise, we would have to quarantine them. And it could be, if you have one kid, everybody surrounding that kid would have to quarantine if they're not all wearing masks.
So you would put masks at number one ahead of vaccination?
Well, vaccination is important, but we don't have, we can't do that with the little kids yet. So that would be up there as well.
6 to 12.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Nurse Vale, when we met on Tuesday, you gave us some anecdotal information about the number of people that you were aware of at this point in time who were positive and were identified. Have those numbers changed since Tuesday?
Yes, I think on Tuesday I said 6 staff members. I think I'm up to 9 or 10, half of which were vaccinated. And the students that I know of, and we're not really getting those reported, but I think we're up to 9 on that. I think it was 5 on Tuesday.
Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you said that 2 had been vaccinated, is that what
No,
you're saying?
about half of them had been vaccinated.
Half of the
out of the
9?
staff members.
On the ventilation, I want to clarify that we are putting more fresh air into the classroom. Am I correct in remembering it was from 10% to 20%?
That's going to be a question more for Mr. Lowe,
Yeah.
who I don't think I have in the room right now, but that is what he's reported to us, yes, sir.
Yeah, I do think that was a minimum, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so they're doing that in addition to, they do have the portable units to kind of supplement. One of the things, just to, to make sure. that-
Portable air purifiers?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In addition to that, Mr. Lowe has purchased some equipment to be able to measure that and to empirically show, so that we're not, making any assumptions we shouldn't. We feel good about where they are. They've done extra with the things they can control with Jeff Meacham to maximize that airflow. Of course, we're bringing in more humidity as we go, but they're doing everything they can do to maximize it. In addition to that, they bought some equipment to, to make sure that we're getting the proper rate of air changes in the room.
Continue, Mr. Chairman. Continue.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I got a question. What about and you may already, and we've heard some of this anyway already, but the cleaning as we're moving into another school year?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that we've learned, again, just, as this thing has evolved, is they're saying that that's not a very common way, and Nurse Vale, I don't know if you have anything to speak to that or not, but what we're hearing is that's not a very common way to transmit. So there's that. Despite that, we're still
You mean
taking this extra.
surfaces?
That's right, yeah, touch surfaces.
We were spraying last year, and they were cleaning after every if they changed classes, after every class, is that
They were
correct?
doing that, yes.
They were wiping down the desk at that point.
Right.
So now you're saying we're going to the once-a-day cleaning?
That's the new recommendation,
New
apparently.
It is.
Yep.
Any other questions?
One quick
Mr.
one.
Wright.
I don't know if this one can be answered or not, but we have 130 cases per 100,000 now. What did we have when we let kids back in the school? Do we know that?
I can tell you that I just looked it up just today. At the end of March, when we started football season last year, we were at high range and we were at 120 cases.
120, so about the same.
That puts it a little bit in perspective.
Okay.
And we are hearing some information that, there's some evidence that these things can spike, but then also spike back down. So we're certainly hopeful that could be the case. Am I accurate on that?
Yes, and that's why we use the 7-day average, because we don't, we might see this, but we use the average so we can see a better picture of what's
But we
going
get
on.
this every week, and we're a week behind when we get the data. And so our ability to adjust is gonna be a couple weeks or so.
I guess fair
And
to
we,
say.
and we can do it like that. I mean, we can adjust right now if numbers come down. Is that
Adjust
correct?
on,
Mask. If they come down to the moderate range, we've talked about that.
well, I think that's a complicated question just because of what that state law says requiring CDC, so it all depends on what CDC does. So all those, factors, play in terms of how we look at it.
I think it's a reasonable question, Mr. Greenway, and regardless, I mean, I don't think it's I think we would owe it to ourselves and everybody else to constantly review the situation, and, I mean, things are gonna change, so, I think
I
we
just
should be
wanna have
open.
that ability
I think we
to
should be
move
open to
quickly.
that, absolutely, that's not an unreasonable request. So I do have a quick question, can you pull up the athletics again?
Yes.
Policy? Because I did see something in there that, I mean, if we've been around, if enough of us have gone to sporting events, and I'm sure enough of us have gone to practices as well, and these kids work pretty darn hard in practice, and they're, pretty physical and exerting a bunch of energy as well. I would prefer that, are we just leaving it up to coaches to decide if, they need to wear masks during practice? I mean,
Yeah.
because it does, masks are required, but maybe removed in high intensity. I just don't know, if we're not requiring them in games, why are we requiring them in practice? So,
we based this,
is this VHSL guidelines?
this is what we used at the end of last school year when we were playing. And so these mitigation strategies are the same ones we implemented last year. So coaches are familiar with them and
Uh-huh.
understand it because they went
Gotcha.
through a whole season. So when it says you can remove them briefly, I visualize that if you're running sprints and the kids can be separated
Uh-huh.
the best they can, they can
Right.
take those masks off.
Okay.
But if they're playing a game, that's not considered the same thing.
Uh-huh.
So the whole idea behind that is to, while they're in practice together, to put in as much mitigation as possible to keep the team from transmitting to each other, because we certainly don't want the teams to shut down. And in contest, originally, the VHSL, they did not require masks during competitions. So there are some school divisions who did implement masks during competitions, and when we
Right.
went to play those teams, we wore our mask.
Okay.
So this is mitigation strategies we implemented last year.
The same ones that were recommended by VHSL,
That's right.
correct?
That's
And
correct.
they have not, VHSL has not updated
They
any
have
of their
not.
guidelines since, so we're still following the guidelines, essentially the same guidelines that the VHL published in the spring.
We're doing that because that's what we are choosing to do by updating our Roanoke County Health Plan, because I do feel like that's in our best interest.
Uh-huh. Well, I get it. I mean, we want our kids out there compete, not only do we want them in the classroom, I want to see them on the field competing, as well. So I understand. Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Are we gonna have, is this for comments section as well, or are we gonna have that?
You
with-
can speak whenever you want to.
Well, I
Rob.
just wanna make sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You
You wanna
wanna-
do it now? I don't think I have any more questions. Do you, Dave? Anybody else? And there's
I mean,
that.
we can, do our thing and then make a few comments if you want.
That's fine.
You
You wanna do
prefer
that?
Okay.
I just didn't know.
Before the vote?
Huh?
Before the vote?
I didn't know what the procedure
Are
was.
we gonna have discussion before a motion?
We can have discussion whenever you want. I mean, it's up to you. So that's why I say, so.
You can make a motion and have
Yeah.
discussion. or
Yeah,
you can-
so,
either way.
well, if that's the case, I mean, everybody, I'm gonna make a motion and everybody can make some comments before or after they cast
Okay,
their
that's
decision.
fine.
Does that
That's
sound good to
perfect.
you all?
That's fine.
So, all
Mr.
right.
Chairman, just real quickly, for the sake of making sure, I know there was a question also regarding a COVID leave or regarding employees that we can also talk about, but we can do that later on. I just want to say we have a little other piece related to COVID, but it's not necessarily related to masking or anything like that. So if you want to talk about that first, we can come back to that.
Mr. Chairman, that's a good point, because we might have a question or two for Stacy in open, is that Is that where
You could, you're right. Dr. McClung was gonna talk about, what we're doing as far as, the COVID leave for employees and that kind of stuff. But I didn't know if you wanted to hear that now or go ahead and deal with this piece first.
Let's go ahead and listen to
Okay,
that.
yeah, that's
Being
fine.
publicized.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. As you all know, last year, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act was enacted to allow flexibility and paid leave for staff who needed to quarantine and in different situations. That was originally in place until December 31st, at which point they extended through March 31st as a requirement for all employers. After March 31st, as a school division, we continue to offer COVID leave to staff who are forced to quarantine. One of the things that happened over the summer was the CDC started to differentiate if a student is vaccinated or a staff member is vaccinated and you came in contact with a person with COVID, you didn't necessarily have to quarantine. This is all changing as of this week, though, so this was based on a few weeks ago. For that reason, we decided to continue to allow staff who had been vaccinated, not if they got COVID, but we were more concerned if a nurse, if I came to work and I had a runny nose or a sore throat, if I go to the nurse, which we are going to do, the nurse is going to require me to quarantine due to being symptomatic. So we did not want to punish those people. We wanted to allow them one day to be able to go out and get a COVID test. Hopefully that would be negative. They would come back to work and we wouldn't have to lose instruction for our students. We know that staff who choose to be unvaccinated, that's absolutely fine, but that's a choice. The others were vaccinated, and at that time, a few weeks ago, yes, quarantined. And so some of that is changing. So what we're going to do is possibly have some tweaks based on the latest information and based on the numbers. Up until the end of last school year, no staff members who had been vaccinated were getting COVID. So what has happened in the past week, as Nurse Vail just shared, now we're having staff members who have been vaccinated getting COVID as well. So we'll go back and tweak that a little bit.
How will we tweak it? What's the tweak?
We'll get feedback from our board attorneys and from some of our professional organizations. But the purpose of the law was to require some flexibility to staff to try to assist if they were to get COVID. And this was, certainly the case. We also will continue, regardless of whether you've been vaccinated or not, if an employee or a student has a disability and requires accommodations, we are going to work with each case individually. And we've already done that as we've started planning for this school year. So if there's a special circumstance, they would contact me and we'll work through that with probably medical information from their provider.
It would be my opinion, not the board's, but mine, that we don't differentiate between, the ones that do get the vaccination and the ones that don't. I personally have vaccinated. That was my choice.
Yeah, and that might end up, if we extended that as we were required to last year, it might be a budget implication that we couldn't do for anybody. So we'll definitely look at that. I can get you numbers as to what that might look like if we did that.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, that's fine.
Go ahead, Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my understanding is that our staff, 80% of the staff have been vaccinated?
Yes.
Is that still the
Correct.
correct number?
Correct.
So, okay.
And our main goal is to keep our teachers in the classroom so they can teach kids. And we know we're going to have, certainly things out of our control that happen. But our main goal is before our vaccinated population started getting COVID again, our main goal was to allow them to take everything a day at a time and make changes and step back and repunt if need be. So
A lot
I'll
of
certainly.
holes in all this, right? A lot of holes in all
There's holes in everything. And what
That's right.
happens
personally, whether it be medically, whether it be religious, whatever it may be, that these folks, the 20%, we should be offering the same benefit.
Yeah, either or.
I agree.
But what, do we know what the County of Roanoke's policy is?
I believe, I'm not 100% sure what their policy
Well,
was, but they were
maybe
only.
before you, since we don't know 100%,
Yeah,
maybe
I
we
don't
should just
think
hold
we've
this
been-
discussion until, because I would like to know, I think it would be, I'd like to kind of, I mean, I know we do a lot of things, you know,
Different.
in side steps. Well, I mean, I feel like a lot, you know, from health benefits, and we do a lot of things with, you know, from Marathon Health and everything.
Yeah.
We try to line up with what
Yeah,
they're-
try to line up with that. I'd be anxious to
Yeah.
know how the county's doing things
Yeah, I can
too.
look into that and get back with you all.
We could bring
Not a
this
problem.
back and put it on the agenda for next week's
So,
board meeting. Get our
I mean,
update.
like you said, everything's so fluid anyway.
Might
And
all
I'll
be
wait-
changed then.
And I'll wait until that
Yeah,
comes
I can
about
do that.
before I make a motion that we fix that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds
Is
great.
it, is it reasonable to have, we could have that information by the next
Absolutely.
board meeting? Is that
Yes.
good?
Yeah, that's
All right,
fine.
perfect.
No problem.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you for that update. All right. So with that being said, I would like to make a motion to require mask in grades PK through 12 in order to comply with SB 1303. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, you call the roll?
Are we gonna
Comment?
discussion?
Huh?
And
What's that?
and no,
Just how you
it's
vote?
comments.
Okay,
then we
yeah,
say-
let's take, thank you for reminding me. I need to keep track. So, yeah. Do you want to open it up, Mr. Greenway?
I'm fine with it. Lots of things to go over, and, you know, of course, we just had a closed session. Just got a text from someone that said, you know, you gotta be kidding me. We just had a vote, and you're doing this again today, and in closed session, you're discussing it. You know, why not discuss it in public? I absolutely agree, but we did, and this is where we're at. And so, also would like to say the hypocrisy of us mandating our schools to have masks. I'm glad to see we've got a couple people here at this meeting with masks, and the rest of us are no mask. So I think that's, you know, unfortunate. We're unfortunately in a pick and choose society right now too. We're going to mandate in schools, but and I'm glad and happy that we're going to continue athletics, band and choir, clubs, everything else. But it's going to be you're going to be in mask. I'm not happy. You know, if you're, we've heard the Miss McClung just said, you know, there's holes in this. If you know, it'd be wonderful if the kids that are vaccinated, 6 to 12, that wouldn't have to wear a mask, right? You know, that's a possibility. I don't, you know, we're mandating it for everybody, but it is what it is. I want to also thank Mr. Ray in closed. I hope I'm not throwing you under the bus here. He offered the caveat of virtual for those kids that, you know, don't want to come either in mask or don't feel comfortable that are in mask. You know, there may be some that are going to be masked that are only going to have the option to go in person. You know, so I thank you, even though we may differ on this discussion, I thank you for throwing that caveat out that we may have an option. It's not a great option, not a perfect option, but it is an option.
And Mr. Greenway, if I can just preface that by saying that, you know, that question arose when we were enclosed, you know, with our school board attorney, asking how that complies with SB 1303. So that's how we came to that discussion.
So we can, you know, we can have that option, and I think Dr. Nicely is going to work on that. I hope we get it before school starts. I hope we have it by Tuesday, but that remains to be seen. And let me just say, you know, there's 4 of us running for school board again, and I'm running unopposed. But I can tell you without a doubt, had I known we were going to go back through this mess again, I would have never signed back up for this. So, and no matter which side you're on, you know, do not belittle the other guy or, you know, or me. So, you know, because we all have our opinions, we respect each other, don't agree politically, but we're all these guys are good guys. All of them are well-intentioned, and I know my point of view is right, but no, I'm just kidding, just kidding. But, you know, I just don't, you know, this stuff divides us, right? And that's, I think, from a national standpoint, that's what this is supposed to do. And I just want us to, you know, remember, we're here for the children, and that's the main goal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just so that last statement doesn't settle in, There will be 4 seats available in November, but not 4 people on this board running for reelection, okay? Just so we're clear on that, and I don't get a message before I get to my car
Well, if we deal with
from my wife.
Well,
Next Friday.
We had to get Mrs. Weimer's approval for this
That's
too.
right.
So I don't think we're gonna get a permanent one.
and there may be 4 open seats if we keep going through this mess. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I personally think we had a pretty good plan in place. I would have liked to have seen that plan include some metrics as far as if we had X number of cases in a matter of a week, or if we had X number of quarantines in 1 week. The plan that we had in place as of Tuesday and prior to that, I think was a very good plan. We kept the option open to change and to be a little bit more restrictive regarding mask wearing if conditions changed once school starts. To go ahead and change it before then, I don't know, I do not agree with, but we are going to hide behind a 16-page CDC document that came out yesterday. The author of the bill that is being referenced, that doctor said that was really not the intention of the bill, but our governor seems to have deciphered that a little bit differently. So, but we're only going to follow some of the guidelines in that bill, not everyone. For example, page 8 of the current CDC guidelines say that we shouldn't be playing sports, high-risk sports, if you're in the high transmission rate. We're currently in a high transmission rate here in the Roanoke Valley, and it says that high school sports should not take place. So it's okay to play sports, but you have to wear masks. There's just, to pick and choose out of these 16 pages which of these CDC guidelines we choose to follow doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So that's about all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Mr. Warner?
I did not anticipate a closed session going an hour and 20 minutes. But during that period of time, I think we all realized that there is a state law. It was passed in March of last year, became effective July 1 of this year, and it's going to be in effect until August the 1st of 2022. Things have changed during that period of time. Last March, we were talking about numbers earlier. They're reasonably comparable to what we are talking about, if I'm correct, Ms. Stegall. At that point in time, there was a lot of cry for open the schools, do what you got to do to get people back in school. And I think that the legislature, whether they knew all the nuances or they didn't know all the nuances, or they, felt like they were being misinterpreted or whatever, according to the person who authored the bill in the General Assembly. The intent was, and I think that this intent of this board, to get as many students back in school on a full-time basis as possible. And to do that, we want not only for them to be back in school, we want them to remain in school. And the mitigation that we need to do to achieve that are the things which we had to check with legal counsel. Is this a violation of the law, or is this permissible? And I think that Mr. Greenway's mentioning of the suggestion that we shared with council has merit. I think Mr. Ray did an excellent job of providing an alternative. And it is that. It's not for everyone. That would, I think, probably fall into that gray area about what the bill really says. But having said that, I think it's a possibility, and it certainly gets as many as we can in for that face-to-face instruction, which we know is the gold standard, for teaching and learning in Roanoke County. I think that the motion that's on the floor at this point allows us flexibility. We keep talking about that, but it does give us flexibility as to how we go about handling those students that are just not able to be in school full-time, regardless of whether it's masked or unmasked. I plan on supporting the motion and hope that our worst fears are not realized. That I hope that CDC over a period of time will make a decision based on the rate. I hope it does go down. I think once we get more vaccinations available and people become more vaccinated, then the risk of spread goes down dramatically. And I would hope that people who are on the fence about that would do it. We keep saying, and I keep hearing, that we want to return to normal. Well, we can only control one segment of that normal, and that's the schools. I hear people say, well, if I go to the grocery store, or if I go shopping, people don't wear masks. But as a school board member, I have no control over that. That's the governor, the General Assembly, CDC, all these other things that we've heard about. But given the state law and giving our responsibility, when we were sworn in, we said that we would uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth of Virginia. And as long as SB 1303 is on the book, it is the law. And I think that from that perspective, we have to do everything we can to adhere to it. And I think the motion that's out there and the options that are available to us that we might want to discuss later will certainly allow us to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that, I appreciate Mr. Greenway and Mr. Weimer's comments, but I think that we have to, as parents make decisions for their children and as we make decisions, I think that, they have to have an option. They have to, if they decide that they don't want us either way for their child, that we as a public school system should offer an option to their learning, because we're obligated to give these students that come to our public schools an education. So, is it concerning that we're at 11.7? We got 130 new cases. It's going in the wrong direction right now. And I think that, this is a constant thing that we will continue to look at as a school board. But we want to continue that option for these parents that feel they do not want to attend schools in a mask. Then that would be available to them at their discretion. Not a medical situation, not a situation that we normally would require, but this is an option that they would have, personal option that they would have. So I think that's, I think that we as board members should offer that option. I really respect every one of these guys in here and their feelings and their, we read in the paper about board meetings that have had bad situations happening, people walking out, different things are happening. But I think after we make a decision today, we'll still continue on, and we're not going to go out hating each other or downing each other about any decision that we make. We come back together as a board and make the next decision that has to be made for Roanoke County Schools. So I think that's really the beauty of our school board versus some other school boards that have so many conflicts, and that they don't come together even after a disagreement on one issue. They don't come back for the next issue. They still hold in a grudge. And I think that's the beauty of our board, that we come back together for other decisions to be made, so thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well said. I echo a lot of those comments. I mean, we've said it before. Mr. Greenway has said it before. We may not always agree on everything, but, when we walk out of this school board meeting, we're going to shake hands. We're going to, shoot the breeze. And I mean, life's going to go on. We very civil, and hopefully the members of the communities, will be the same way. I'm sure all of us have received, nasty emails on both sides, and it certainly doesn't help, I just hope we can have some good civil discourse. We're not always going to agree. The community's not going to always agree, but it certainly, doesn't do any good to, to yell at each other and shout over each other. So I was going to mention this, about the author's bill. Anyway, I think it's Donovan. And she's a doctor, and we just heard from Nurse Vale that masking is one of the best mitigation strategies we have. But I would like to point out the author of this bill, while she says in one sentence that there's no data to say that masks work, but then in an interview yesterday at the Capitol, she was wearing a mask because she had a cold. And then in the same sentence said she doesn't believe there's evidence that children wearing a mask offers any benefit. So, that's Roanoke Times. So, everyone, can feel free to read that. But I appreciate everybody's hard work. I think it is important to, to have options, and hopefully, within the next several days, Dr. Nicely can get back to us on, an additional online option. So, and look, at the end of the day, I know the majority of kids are very resilient, when it comes to COVID, and many show no symptoms, and recover. That's, for the, honestly, for about the 25% of emails I got from people who didn't want their kids to wear a mask, that's what they kept pointing to: children being resilient. And, I'm not casting this vote because I live in fear of COVID, right? I mean, I'm casting this vote because if our goal is to have these kids in the classroom, as several of my constituents have pointed out, people smarter than me, the CDC, the AAP, believe masks will help. Last year we had 3,858 students and 688 staff members had to quarantine. That's a significant time away from the classroom. And once again, if our goal is to have these kids in the classroom, that's huge. Our faculty, our staff have done a great job teaching students and meeting their needs over the past 2 years. But learning loss is real. Think about this. If you've got a fourth grader this year, their last full year, 5 days a week in the classroom was first grade. If you've got a sixth grader, their last full year in the classroom 5 days a week was third grade. And if you're like me, who have a senior, their last full year in the classroom was when they were freshmen. I mean, that's crazy. Take a minute and let that sink in, then ask yourself, as I did, what's in the best interest of the students to have them in the classroom. So, look, I'm well aware that my decision may cost me votes in the election. However, I became a school board member because my own kids are Roanoke County students. My wife is an educator, and many of my friends are in education. I believe in public education from the bottom of my heart. And if that means doing what is in the best interest of students, and if that costs me the election, I'm okay with it. I'm going to sleep well at night. So, with that being said, can we get a roll call on this motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, can you read the motion again?
Certainly too. I would like to make a motion to require masks in grades pre-K through 12 in order to comply with SB 1303. Madam Clerk.
Yes.
Mr. Linden?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Greenway?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Ray?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Moran?
Yes, ma'am. Meeting adjourned.